Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the North American Development Bank. My name is Andrew Rudman. I'm the director of the Mexico Institute here at the Woodrow Wilson Center, and it's a pleasure to have you all with us this morning. The North American Development Bank, just as a reminder for everyone, is a binational financial institution established by the governments of the United States and Mexico to provide financing to support the development and implementation of infrastructure projects, as well as to provide technical and other assistance for projects and actions that preserve, protect, or enhance the environment in order to advance the well-being of the people of the United States and Mexico. The bank was established in San Antonio on November 10, 1994. So we are in fact a bit late in celebrating the 25th anniversary, but this is surely a case of better late than never. And we're delighted to co-sponsor today's event with the NADB. We have an excellent group of speakers who have joined us to recognize the bank's achievements and speak to the potential for the next quarter century. And the program will in fact begin with a presentation from a managing director of the North American Development Bank, Calixto Mateos. Managing Director Mateos joined the bank on became Managing Director on November 14, 2019. So his tenure began almost precisely on the 25th anniversary. He served previously at the bank as Deputy Managing Director from 2017 to 2019, and Director of Risk Management and Control from 2014 to 2017. Prior to joining the NADB, Managing Director Mateos spent over 25 years at the Mexican Central Bank, the Banco de Mexico, where he held various positions, including Economics Researcher, Deputy Microfinancial Programming Manager, Deputy Project Manager, Macroeconomic Analysis Manager, Strategic Planning Project Manager, and Risk Manager. His last position with the central bank was as Director of Institutional Liaison. He's been a professor of economics at the Graduate School of Business at the Tec de Monterrey, and has also participated in international and national seminars hosted by multinational financial institutions and central banks from Europe and the Americas. In addition, he's published several articles in specialized magazines on such topics as monetary and fiscal policy. And it is with that a great pleasure for me to hand the podium, so to speak, over to Calixto Mateos to tell us about the bank's 25 years.
Well, thank you very much, Andrew. And first I want to thank you for the Woodrow Wilson Center's Mexico's Institute for providing this opportunity to share the important work of the North American Development Bank. I would also like to extend my appreciation to Senator John Cornyn, Congressman Henry Guaya, and former Mexican ambassador to the U.S., Jerónimo Gutiérrez, for joining us today at today's event. I am going to share some slides on what's the bank. I thank you because you already gave the introduction and of what's the bank. Let me see. Okay, is it showing? Yes. Okay. So as you mentioned, we are a binational institution. We provide loans, technical assistance, and some grants, and for projects located within 100 kilometers north and 300 kilometers south of the border. We are established in San Antonio, Texas, and we have an office in Ciudad Juárez, Chihuahua. And we have a very good credit rating of AA1 from Moody's and AA from Fitch. Our board is comprised of 10 members, and 5 from the US, 5 from Mexico, and they are the Secretary of the Treasury, the Secretary of State, the Administration of the Environmental Protection Agency, and the US Border State Representative, and another US Border Public Representative, and the same on the Mexican side. This is the area I was mentioning. I mean, we have a very specific mandate, as it was mentioned, on funding environmental projects. And we have limited a limited region, which is, as I say, from 100 meters north of the border and 300 kilometers south. As you see, we cover all states for that region, and we cover almost 16.4 million inhabitants in Mexico and 6.34 million in the US. The bank specializes in environment, of course, and specifically in 5 sectors. One is water and all the water that's the cycle. I mean, from potable and drinking water to sewage and rainstorm water. We have been doing a lot of work in that area, especially in the border. I'm going to present later some of the results. We also work on what's called the residential, industrial, and hazardous waste. And this is another area of interest for the bank, and where we have done a lot of work. Then, of course, related to the environment, all the air quality, and we've done a lot of projects in terms of paving and roads and border crossings. And we have worked in the latest years mostly on clean and renewable energy. And that's we do, of course, solar farms, wind farms, waste to energy, biofuels, and the last one is energy efficiency. We changed the street lightings, and we do some energy audits for utilities, and we help them modernize and do more energy efficient processes, and we finance that. So that's mainly our big sectors in the bank. If we go to the results, what we have here is over the 25-year. I'm just getting the 25-year period to make it consistent with the topic. Of course, we've done a little bit more since that time, but you can see that the bank has invested almost equally in Mexico and in the US, and roughly 1.6 million in Mexico, 1.2 billion in US. That's our investment. And you can see it's been fairly equitable among the border states. In terms of what we have achieved is we have a record of funding 25 water treatment systems, and that implies 160 million gallons a day of water and 291 miles of water distribution lines. We have also participated in 61 wastewater treatment systems for 442 million gallons a day and 1,309 miles of sewer lines. In terms of the air, we have been, involved in paving 14 million square meters of roads, which reduce approximately 4,540 tons a year of PM10 particles emissions. And we have established and installed 2,091 megawatts of the installed capacity of renewable energy. That reduces about 4.3 million tons a year of greenhouse gas emissions. And we have also provided, in terms of our transportation program, financing for 722 new buses with cleaner technologies, and that has allowed to avoid 2,554 tons a year of CO2 emissions. In terms of waste, we have invested in 17 sanitary landfills for a combined capacity of 6 million cubic meters of trash and 7 transfer stations. And we work and funded also 153 waste management vehicles and also 13 open dump sites we participated in its closure. If I go specific to the water sector, I think it's important to highlight that over these 25 years, the bank has been a key participant in the border. And if you see the results, I mean, I'm not saying all of them are from the bank, but you can see that from 1990, if we start from 1990, the level that we had of potable water in the US and Mexico, and if you compare it with the level that we have in 2015, you can see a big increase. I mean, especially in the US, it's drinking water and wastewater collection. It's almost universally, but in Mexico, I mean, just short of it, but we are close to it. And as you see from sanitary sewage, you can see that trend equal, and also in the wastewater treatment. Wastewater treatment has improved, and NADB has participated in more than 86 water and wastewater treatment system projects, adding 33% of installed capacity in Mexico's border states and over 90% in the 100-kilometer strip. Of course, there are still needs that remain, like the infrastructure we have financed over the past years. Now it's becoming obsolete. There's a problem with discharge permit compliance, reliability, low system coverage zones, institutional strengthening, resource availability, and of course, climate vulnerability. I mean, that's just to say that we've done, we consider we've done a lot, but we still have a lot more to do, and that we will be doing it in the future as well. In terms of air quality, as I was saying before, we participate in 34 renewable energy projects financed with a capacity of 2,864 megawatts and a generation of 8,780 gigawatts per year. It's an investment that the full amount, I mean, the bank participated in part because we normally trigger the investments, but the investment, it's about $5.48 billion. And those projects have displaced about 4.3 million tons of carbon dioxide and 7,208 tons of NOx and 1,699 tons of sulfur annually. So that means in Mexico, for example, we have supported 65% of the renewable energy in the Mexican border states. And that's equivalent to the consumption of 3.5 million homes and the displacement of CO2 emissions for 524,000 cars. And the projects in the US have a combined capacity of 990 megawatts, and that's enough to supply 900,000 households. And you can see that how it has evolved in the graphs in both the US and Mexico, and what's the share of NADB participation in the renewable energy in the border region in Mexico, as seen in the middle graph. We, as I mentioned, in terms of air quality, we have done a lot of street paving, and the objective is to reduce the PM10 emissions from unpaved roadways. NADB financed 18 roadway improvements projects in Mexico, and with a total investment of $1.3 billion. That means 14.1 million square meters of roadway that were rehabilitated or paved for the first time and 4,600 tons a year of PM20 were avoided. As you can see, there's an increase in most of the states in the graph in the lower left side. And you can see that, I mean, more or less the amounts that we've done in the states in Mexico, basically. In terms of public transportation, that's another element of, I mean, it's another one of sectors that pollutes more or contributes more for the emission of CO2. You can see on the statistics that the rate of motorization in the US border region increased 2.3%, while ridership in public transportation grew from 14% to 18%. In Mexico, the motorization rate decreased 8.7%, and the people using public transportation increased from 55% to 59%. So we financed 722 buses, and that has helped expand services or replace obsolete vehicles. The investment is currently around $89.6 million, but it is a revolving line of credit, so it will continue to grow as some vehicles are paid and we roll the next number on the line of credit. And you can see how many private vehicles and age are there, and how we have supplied them in terms of the buses. In terms of solid waste, we have, like, the US border, the waste generation is about 4.5 pounds per capita per day. And that's twice that of the Mexican border, with economic asymmetry. The garbage collection service has remained constant for the US border at 100%. At the Mexican border, collection coverage reached 92% in 2015, and 64 landfills were in operation in 2018, 6 times more than in 2000. NADB has financed 17 landfills, but built or expanded and we closed 13 open-air landfill sites as well. So as you can see on the graphs, that's also a great advancement in terms of the generation and the collection and the number of sanitary landfills and the electronic waste recycled. You can see it there. So we have participated in this project. So if I say that's like the summary of what we've done so far in terms of our sectors. I think the question is what's next? What's going to do the bank? I must say that the bank in 2015, the board approved to an increase in the capital of the bank, and that has been actually attained in the US with the signing of the US MCA implementing legislation last year. And Mexico has a schedule of how they are contributing to the increasing capital, and they have been doing so. So we're a very healthy institution, and we have done a lot. As you can see, we think we'll still have a lot more to do in those traditional sectors that we have. But we also want, with the new capital, to become a key promoter of sustainable growth by supporting the integration of green value change, transitioning to a greener economy in the context of the USMCA in the border region. If I just take a note on institutional building, NADBank is, I mean, it takes time to build an institution. And after 25 years, the bank has been self-sustaining and continues to be a good steward of US and Mexican public funds. Thank you very much, and I leave the floor for our next panelist. Thank you, Andrew.
Good morning. My name is Jesse Herfer, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Director of Public Affairs here at the bank. And today I get the honor of introducing my hometown Congressman, Congressman Henry Guaya. The Congressman serves on the Powerful Appropriations Committee. He's consistently ranked among the most bipartisan member of the U.S. House. He also serves as the chair of the U.S.-Mexico Interparliamentary Group, which is a big proponent of the relationship between the U.S. and Mexico, and the Congressman helps advance that on a daily basis. The Congressman is from Laredo, Texas, and he represents the largest inland port for trade with Mexico and has ensured that our shared hometown has the appropriate trade deals like USMCA and sufficient infrastructure to accommodate that trade. So Congressman, thank you for joining us. It's always my pleasure to see you, but today I get to introduce you and turn the program over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jesse, and thank you for what you do and the rest of the folks on the NADB. Thank you so much. I have to apologize because I'm probably going to sprint out of this. We're up here in DC in the middle of appropriations, and they're about to take a record vote on an amendment. We're doing Homeland appropriations, and we need 6 bills. We've done 6 of them already, and certainly want to be very supportive of what you all do at the NADB. As you know, we were able to recapitalize, do some of the work this last time on the USMCA. And again, I want to thank you, Jesse, and Calixto, and everybody who worked together. Geronimo, make sure that everybody that worked on it to make sure that we get it done. I'm a big supporter of the NADB. I appreciate what y'all do. And with that, I apologize. This is the shortest talk I've given in a long time, but I apologize because we've been running around. And by the way, Jesse, just so you know, my plane was 4 hours late last night, so it was one of those special nights last night. But again, Jesse, thank you so much. Do want to say that there's a lot of work that we need to do at the border. It's not only the border infrastructure, the wall stuff, but it's what you all have done for so many years on both sides of the border. So with that, thank you so much. And Jesse, it's always a pleasure seeing you again.
Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you, Congressman. We appreciate you being here. Understand that he was not able to stay for long, but I think we'd all agree that having him on the floor casting votes is really important. We're going to have just a moment as we are waiting for Senator Cornyn to join us. I think he too is in the midst of legislative business. So if you don't mind, Calixto, can I perhaps ask a question or two?
Sure.
And when Senator Cornyn joins us, we'll shift gears again. Had a couple of a great presentation covering all that you've done at the NADB. So I'll ask you two questions at once. One, in terms of sort of structure of how the bank works, you noted that there is one representative from the U.S. border states and one from the Mexican border states. So it might be interesting to understand who they are right now and how those roles are designated and for how long. And then in terms of the lending profile, I'm wondering, I will assume that over the course of the 25 years, the focus has shifted to some extent from what might have been seen more as remediation type projects in the beginning, more cleanup, and now perhaps moving more to climate change mitigation. Is that correct? Or maybe you could talk a little bit about how the focus might have changed.
Well, thank you. Yes, I think there were 2 great questions, and I mean, in terms of the first one, how we have like the board established. Actually, it's each country who decides who's going to be the representatives, and they have their own specific processes of appointing the members. Right now, in terms of the U.S., we have the representative of the border states is, is in still is there, but it's moving maybe. Senator Jose Rodriguez, or former Senator Jose Rodriguez from Texas. And as a representative of the communities is Denise Moreno Bucheni, who's a former senator of California as well. And so they are from the part of the US. From part of Mexico, it's been appointed the head of the Unidad Coordinadora de Entidades Federativas in Hacienda, and as representative of the border states, and in terms of the border communities is Dr. Carlos de la Parra, who is a professor at COLEF and a researcher, and he's in Tijuana and the Tijuana region. So he's also very active, as well as the others. And we have, of course, the representatives of the secretaries that are part of a board. Our board has to approve every single project that we finance. So we have to be very careful in preparing all this and proving that there's an environmental value to everything we do. And for that, actually, in terms of the administration of the bank, we have a management team, which is myself as managing director, but then we have the deputy managing director, who's John Beckham, and we have our chief environmental officer, who's Salvador Lopez, and that figure actually is the one that reviews and makes sure that we keep to our mandate of financing environmental infrastructure projects. So that's in terms of the first question. As for the second question, as you were mentioning, well, we will keep doing what we've done, because there's still a lot to do in the traditional support of communities in terms of water. Maybe the remediation part never ends, because the border grows. So we will keep doing that, of course. But we want to go a step ahead and be more on helping well, adjust to the climate change and do more preventive actions as well, and making the economy, as I said, a lot greener and sustainable in the border region.
Great, thank you. That was really helpful. If folks watching this morning, I guess it's about to be this afternoon here in the East, have questions, you're free to email them to mexico@wilsoncenter.org or tag us on Twitter @Mexico Institute, and we'll try to get to those. I'm going to ask Managing Director Mateos one more question, and then perhaps we'll shift the order of our program a bit. But I'm curious, one of the areas that you focused on, and where there seems to still be a lot that needs to be done, deals with wastewater management. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how the bank, I'm assuming this is a how, not an if, works with EPA, CONAGUA, and the state level counterparts to try to implement projects to address wastewater deficiency and inadequate treatment.
Yes, and well, first to know that, as you mentioned, water is a very important issue in this border. It's normally a desert, and so we water is a scarce resource and a very valued one. So we are involved in all the cycle, as from distribution of clean water, potable water, to the treatment of it. And as you mentioned, given that it's a binational matter, there are a lot of in relation to water. So as you said, it's EPA, of course, it's Semarnat in Mexico, it's CONAGUA, and it's also SILA or IBWC. Because each one of these instances have a particular responsibility in the water cycle. So the way we see the bank is we are the tool for those institutions to help. Of course, we have in our board state and EPA and Semarnat and SRE in Mexico. And that means that the binational part is always part of what the board is asking us to be a participant of. We take their lead, but we are the facilitators, and we think, I mean, we see the bank as that forum where we will be working, because we have a very clear mandate, you know, and we have to deliver things. And of course, the coordination part sometimes it's difficult. I mean, not because there's no will to do it, but it's because there are a lot of participants working. And that makes it interesting, let's say, the part of how it's involved. But there are, I mean, normal and continuous meetings with stakeholders. There are specific problems related to water that we are helping to address. And well, that's like the bank wants to be this key element in the binational relationship.
Excellent. Well, as you point out, it's always difficult coordinating with multiple agencies, but I think at the end of the day, it's essential that you have the buy-in of everybody who in one way or another has responsibility for the border area and for environmental issues. So we appreciate your hard work and your efforts to do that. I think what we'll do now is we're waiting for Senator Cornyn, as we will shift our focus a little bit. And what I'd like to do is invite Ambassador Jeronimo Gutierrez into the conversation. Ambassador Gutierrez has the unique distinction of being the only person, at least as far as I know, who's ever been both managing director of the NADB as well as serving as Mexican ambassador to the United States. And in fact, it was those were not simultaneous roles. Before he became Mexico's ambassador to the U.S. from 2017 to 2018, Ambassador Gutierrez was Mexico's Deputy Secretary for Governance and Homeland Security, and then, as I mentioned, served as Managing Director of the NADB from 2010 to 2016. And throughout these positions, he analyzed threats to Mexico's democratic governance and national security, worked to normalize Mexico-Cuba relations, aimed to strengthen transnational anti-narcotics efforts, and coordinated trilateral and bilateral affairs with the U.S. and Mexico. As Mexican ambassador to the U.S., he played a significant role in negotiating the USMCA, and he currently works as a managing partner of Beal Infrastructure, a specialized advisory and asset management firm focusing on Latin American infrastructure. Ambassador Gutierrez is also a member of the Mexico Institute's advisory board and a longtime supporter of our work, and we're very grateful for his participation today and working with us at the Wilson Center. And it looks like we have Senator Cornyn here now. So with apologies, welcome, Senator Cornyn.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here, and we'll switch back, if it's all right with everyone, to our plan. And let me briefly introduce Senator Cornyn, who we know is short on time this morning. Really appreciate having him here. Senator Cornyn, as I'm sure everyone on this program knows, is a longtime supporter of North American integration and of the North American Development Bank. The senator was first elected to Congress in 2002 from the state of Texas. He serves on its Finance, Intelligence, and Judiciary Committee. And from 2013 to 2018, Senator Cornyn was the whip, the second highest ranking position in the Senate Republican Conference. He has nearly 4 decades of experience in public service, having served first as a district judge and later as a member of the Texas Supreme Court. In 1997, Senator Cornyn resigned from the Texas Supreme Court and was elected as Attorney General. He received his undergraduate degree in journalism from Trinity University. In 1997, he obtained a law degree from St. Mary's School of Law and joined the San Antonio law firm, where he specialized in defending doctors and lawyers in malpractice suits. He also received a master's in law from the University of Virginia Law School in 1995. Senator Cornyn, thank you so much for joining us, and particularly thank you for your longstanding support for and involvement with the Wilson Center, and welcome this morning.
Well, thanks, Andrew. I appreciate it. And a big thanks to all of my friends at the North American Development Bank for the invitation to join you today. And of course, it's always good to be with my friend and our friend, Henry Cuellar, who I've been proud to work with over the years. And I must say, I see some other familiar faces like Jesse, who does a good job, and my friend Geronimo Gutierrez, who I first met when I was Attorney General in Mexico City. It's great to see you. And but let me just say, it really is a pleasure to join you for NADBank's 25th anniversary. As we all know, over the last 25 years, the bank has made critical investments in our border communities, everything from new solar plants and wind farms to water treatment facilities and sewer lines. The bank has driven investments that improve air quality and water quality and help build a healthier, safer, and more vibrant border communities along our southern border. In April, I was proud to join you for the unveiling of one of those projects, Webb County's new solar farm. Folks outside of Texas often think we are against any kind of energy that isn't oil and gas, a narrative that we all know is patently false. Indeed, we are an all of the above economy. I am a strong supporter of that all of the above energy strategy, one that relies on traditional fossil fuels as well as renewables and champions innovation to reduce emissions. And there's no question in my mind that NADBank is doing incredible work to bring that innovation to our border communities. And despite all the challenges of the last year with the pandemic, the bank's dedication to this mission and improving the lives of Texans has never wavered. And on behalf of 29 million Texans, I thank you. Now, I've always been a strong supporter of the bank and fought to include increased funding and spending authority for NADBank in the USMCA. As you know, our friend, Congressman Cuellar, was my partner in that effort and helped secure these provisions in the final text of the trade agreement. We're already seeing the incredible ways that this funding is impacting important infrastructure projects in our border communities. In the years to come, I know it will further strengthen the bank's efforts to improve the quality of life along our border region. As border communities like Laredo and Farr and McAllen's Anzalduas ports of entry are all looking at modernizing and expanding their infrastructure, there could not be a more important time to boost the potential impact of the bank. I'm confident that NADBank will continue to help these communities, which will in turn benefit not only our beautiful state, but our nation as a whole. In Texas alone, NADBank has financed 72 projects amounting to more than $720 million in financing. 720 million. Across the entire US-Mexico border, the total leveraged investment amount $1 billion. I'm amazed at the ways the bank continues to push for new and exciting projects, and I look forward to seeing how you will make Texas an even better place to live and work as we continue our work together. So again, congratulations on all your hard work improving the lives of Texans and on reaching 25 years. Here's to 25 years more. Thank you again for the opportunity to join you for this exciting celebration, and I hope to see all of you again soon, hopefully in person.
Senator, thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here this morning. We know you have a hectic schedule, so thanks for carving out some time for us.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Now, if you'll forgive me, I have to go vote. So we'll see you later. Take care.
Thank you. Okay, well, thanks everybody for the patience as we tried to work around congressional schedules, and I had introduced Ambassador Gutierrez, and now we'll turn to you, bring you into the conversation. Thank you for joining us today, and as I mentioned, you really have a unique perspective on the bank, and I think we can take advantage of that dual experience. And maybe we should start with, if it's all right, we'll start with awareness of the bank on the part of the sponsoring governments, the private sector, and civil society. So maybe drawing on your experience in both of the roles that you held, how much awareness of the bank is there in official Mexico City and in official Washington, D.C.? And the obvious follow-up question, is there enough attention and awareness?
Thank you, Andrew, very much for that kind introduction. It's a pleasure to see my friend and colleague Calixto Mateos and Jesse, and it's obviously a true pleasure to participate along with Senator Cornyn and Representative Guaya in this event. Two people that have provided over the last 25 years both support and guidance to an institution that I feel very dear and which is very important. So it's my true pleasure, Andrew, and thank you for the invitation. I think the NADB is one of the best, one of the best kept secrets in the relationship. And not because we're not accountable or we're not transparent. Absolutely, it's quite the opposite. But I think that the bank has not always, unfortunately, received all the attention from the capitals. As you know, people at the border, on both sides of the border, usually say that if we leave them alone, meaning if the capitals leave them alone, both Washington and Mexico City, they will solve all the problems in the border. And that might be a bit exaggerated, but there's also some truth to that. I think that the bank has four things that make it quite unique. One is that it's a truly binational institution, one of the very few truly binational institutions. All the staff at the bank obviously put their T-shirt of this binational institution, and they work truly in an objective manner for the benefit of both the United States and Mexico. The second thing, I think that the bank, it's one of the few institutions that actually makes money for the taxpayers on both sides, right? And I think that's very relevant. I mean, the capital that has the governments have invested into the institution has actually made money for them, which is not always the case in government. The third thing is that it has, I think, evolved. It's like good wine. It gets better with time. And I think it has evolved very positively over the last 25 years. And finally, it's truly a border institution. There has been throughout these past 25 years, discussions on whether it should extend farther or not. I think that's a discussion that we could have in maybe in another 25 years. But I think that the opportunities and the challenges that we face in the border region would just call upon the institution continue to be truly a border organization. And I think that makes it quite unique. I think that when people learn about the NADB with a little bit more detail, people that not necessarily live in the border, they're amazed by the breadth of its operations and by the success it had so far. So I think we should definitely, all of us that care about this institution and about the bilateral relationship should continue to work to make it known, throughout both countries.
Thank you. I think that's a great start. And before I go forward, Calixto, if you want to jump in at any time, please feel free to do that. I know it's always challenging to be on a panel with a predecessor.
No, but I just want to thank
the X, Andrew.
It's
always more difficult to be the X.
Very, very true. But let me, if I can, Jeronimo, pick up on something you alluded to. The institution is called the North American Development Bank, and it's associated with NAFTA, and yet there really isn't a Canadian angle to the NADB, at least that I'm aware of. Is that okay? Should we change that? Is there a role for Canada to play, or how could or should Canada engage either with the work the NADB currently does on the U.S.-Mexico border, or whether there's opportunity to do work, maybe this is for you as well, Calixto, to do work on the U.S.-Canada border?
I think, Andrew, that I've always thought that the bank over these 25 years has basically gone through three phases. The first phase is the one that I call the what do we do next phase. And it was when it was created back in '94, it was really, if you think about it, the first green bank ever created, which is quite something. At the time that NAFTA was being discussed and the North American was being conceived, there was not so much attention to green banking, green infrastructure, the environment, and I think that's extremely relevant. It took time, as Calixto was saying, because nobody really knew how at that time to create a binational development bank that finances infrastructure in the environmental infrastructure in the border. There was no map for that, so it naturally took time. So that's the first phase. The second one is the consolidation phase, which was, it took maybe 10 additional years or so, but it implied two important things. First, two reforms that went through the Mexican Senate and through the US Congress, one in 2004, when, we needed to tweak part of the charter to make sure that it worked better. And the second one, it was, as it was referred by both Representative Cuellar and Senator Cornyn, it was a capital increase and the merger of the North American Development Bank and its sister institution, the Border Environmental Cooperation Commission. We maintain the true environmental spirit of the commission, but nevertheless, I think we made a much more efficient institution. So it's consolidated. And I think we're at the third phase, which is sort of the growth and leverage phase. I think the bank now, especially with the capitalization, has huge potential to grow and do more good in the border region of both countries. And it also implies that we should leverage more that tool by the government side, by the countries. It is in this context that you could eventually consider, have a thoughtful discussion about there's a way to replicate this, whether in the Canada-US border or not. There are some ideas floating around by people that thought about this, but I think that, to be honest, it's not easy. It's not an easy question to solve. But it's certainly worth thinking about. And I'll let Calixto, give us his own input.
Thank you, Geronimo. I think, as always, we're in sync in many things. And I think the bank has a lot still to do in this border. But the model could be replicated or could be expanded if that's, and maybe expand sometimes because the institution is already here. And as you mentioned, that's the hardest part, the defining it and how it works. Of course, adding that would be a completely new thing for the bank. That can be a discussion, as you were mentioning, over the next 25 years. And in the meantime, we will keep working what we do. And as you mentioned, we're going the next step in integrating ourselves in the value chains, the green value chains. And if we integrate that in the context of the USMCA, that's when we're going to bring Canada in a way, because those processes are integrated with Canada as well. So I think that there's room there for Canada to participate, and we will be open to any suggestions and discussions about it.
Andrew, jumping back in, I think there are two possibilities on that matter, to be sure. One would imply that if the US and Canada consider making a similar institution for their own border, that institution is created, and eventually Mexico can be sort of a extra regional partner like you have in the IDB with other European countries, right? And vice versa. And Canada could perhaps be a partner of the North American Development Bank as it happens. So that wouldn't be sort of cross-pollination between these two institutions. The other one would be actually to change the charter of the NADB and assign it responsibilities in the US-Canada border. And I just point that those are like two of the ways that you can think about these possibilities.
Right. Neither of which, as you both alluded to, would be done easily, and certainly would be complicated. Calixto, you talked about trying to coordinate across all of the agencies in two governments, and I suppose in a sense I've proposed adding 50% more people or agencies for you to coordinate with. We've talked a lot this morning about the environmental part. Certainly Senator Cornyn made reference to infrastructure. So maybe both of you, maybe Geronimo sort of historically and Calixto now, could talk a little bit about how the NADB engages in the development of border infrastructure, which, as we all know, is critically important to continue to promote and benefit from the growth of the trade relationship.
Calixto, you want to go ahead?
Okay, I can go ahead this time. And in terms of what we have on financing infrastructure or environmental infrastructure, I think the bank has an advantage because we have a definition of what's an environmental infrastructure project, which is not bound by just being physical infrastructure. So that allows us to do a little bit more. And actually, that's the basis of what we just started. I mean, with the guidance of our board, trying to define new types of projects that we can finance in the future. We already finished public consult period, and we're getting a lot of comments. And well, we've gotten a lot of comments and very positive ones in what we want to do in terms of these new green industrial parks and green manufacturing, green value chains, and that's something that we're discussing, and we're positive that the board will guide us in going into these new sectors, and that will help us integrate more the bank in the productive processes of the industries in the border and integrate them across both countries. So that's in terms of the infrastructure, and of course, as I mentioned, all the traditional one. I mean, growing the border, it has the highest rate of growth. That means that there's continuous needs of more water, more wastewater, and more treatment of the water, because water is scarce. So we need to really get and reuse the water that's and take the best use of water in all its cycles. So I now, Geronimo, you want to get a reflection on what you have more as the broad picture.
Thank you. I think, just following on Calixto's, first, I think that sort of our founder fathers were right on mark in putting water, solid waste, and air quality as the core sectors for the institution. And I think they will continue to be extremely important. Calixto just mentioned, and he's absolutely right, that water is a key. It's an increasingly important and challenging issue in the US-Mexico border. And the NADB cannot take on all of the challenge by itself, but it's certainly a very important tool. And I think we should continue to support in every way we can the involvement of the NADB to try to address some of the challenges, if not all, posed by managing water in the border region. I think that's key. Number one. Number two, I think that, being a little bit blunt, I think that, the renewable space, something that the bank has done a wonderful job over the especially over the last years, should continue to be supported. The U.S., at least this administration and the López Obrador administration, are not seeing, I dare to say, precisely eyeball to eyeball on the renewable space. But I think that the NADB is precisely a point of encounter for them, because it's an institution that it's already paid, that's worked on that can provide guidance, and that hopefully can continue. The border region has huge potential for renewables. And I think that that's an area in which both governments can use the bank as a point of encounter on and continues to be extremely important. And I'm very happy to know that under the leadership of the present administration and Calixto and Juan and everybody else on the team, there has been an attempt to increase the sectors or the type of projects within the environmental mandate that could work. I think that the idea of looking at industrial parks, greening industrial park throughout the border, green manufacturing, and if I'm not mistaken, supply or food supply chains, sustainable food supply chains, has huge potential. I know that is being under reviewed now by the board. I would urge the board to move ahead with those sectors. I think it can be a great boost for the institution and a wonderful step for the relationship. just a few years ago, when the bank did its first renewable energy project, the board was a little bit hesitant about doing renewable energy. I remember that time. And at that time, we said, listen, if we're the green bank, if we're supposed to be an environmental bank, and we're not doing renewable energy, then what are we doing? No. And I think that those sectors that are being under consideration, and again, the bank has always moved carefully and slowly, but I think, and we've made, it's made a lot of mistakes, and I'm certain, accountable for some of them, but I think that a balance, it has moved gradually to be able to achieve, after it gets to a decision, to do a lot of good both countries. And I think the board should continue to support the management, moving to those sectors as soon as possible. It'll provide a great boost and an economic boost for the border region, an environmental one. And I think that the sooner that happens, the better.
Thanks. I think that makes a great deal of sense, Geronimo. It's important. I think if we've learned nothing from the pandemic over the past 18 months, is the need to be thinking about how we need to adapt and be prepared. And I think your points about an environmental bank not involved in renewable energy doesn't make sense. And perhaps one of the challenges for the NADB board and for those of us from the outside who are supportive is to identify what might be that next challenge, or what are the next challenges, or the changes in the world, as you say, like access to reliable food supply that the bank can engage in. We are very close to up on time, so I'll go to you first, Calixto. But I'll ask you both the same basic question. Looking ahead, what does the bank need, and what can those of us sort of outside the bank, outside of government, do to help the bank be successful in its next 25 years?
Well, I think first is keep the support you've given. I mean, that's been very important in terms of our consults and everything. Guide us. I mean, especially Woodrow Wilson has a lot of information, and over the years has really give us some background and where we can do more. We can be more effective. I mean, in terms of the future for the bank, as I was saying, we're involved in this, as Geronimo mentioned, sustainable food chains, let's say, energy storage. I mean, as part of a complement of having renewable energy, we need, and I mean that both countries need to invest in and will increase the reliability of the grid, and that will make a more effective the production of renewable energy. As Senator Cornyn mentioned, I mean, in Texas, there's a great example. Texas do produce a lot of renewable energy, do also have fossil energy, but the idea is to be every year more efficient and less pollutant. But we need these other types of projects. And if I mean, as a matter of conclusion, I mean, the bank, as Geronimo mentioned, was created as a green bank when that concept was not known. But we are truly the green bank by creation, by mandate. And what we've done also, it's a lot of the involvement in all these new green banking and green finance. And we are a very active participant in the forums that are related to that. We are strengthening our processes to be more compliant with what are now the principles of green bond and green loans and the Equator principles and all these new definitions, let's say, that we have on how to be green. And actually, since a few years ago, we started issuing our markets to raise capital. We issue in the form of green bonds, and that those green bonds have had great acceptance. And I mean, that's of course the only thing we're going to do in the future. And we are always strengthening, and as I said, with our structure, and Tony mentioned, by the merger with the Border Environmental Cooperation Commission, we are now very focused on doing green projects, green financing, and
Excellent. Thank you. I'm going to go to my colleague, Jesse, to wrap us up.
Well, just on behalf of the bank's management team, which is Dr. Calixto Mateos, John Beckham, and Salvador Lopez, we greatly appreciate the opportunity. So thank you, Andrew, to you, to the Woodrow Wilson Center's Mexico Institute for hosting this event today. We'd also like to extend our appreciation to Senator Cornyn, Congressman Guaya, former Ambassador Jerónimo Gutierrez, as well as everybody else that joined on the webinar. It is truly an honor to work at the North American Development Bank and to be able to see firsthand the impact that the bank has had on the US-Mexico border residents. To date, our projects have helped improve the lives of over 18.5 million people. So that's extremely impactful. I know there was a lot of numbers thrown around, but that's one that I wanted to highlight. And then finally, I would just like to end with a brief announcement. The bank is hosting the Border Environmental Forum on August 17th and 18th here in San Antonio, Texas. And so for additional information, please visit the bank's website, which is nadb.org, for information about the event or for the 25th anniversary report, which is also found on our website. Andrew, thank you again to you and to the Woodrow Wilson Center for hosting us, and thank you to all the participants today.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate it, and hope everyone has a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.